Alright, so we're 2 weeks out from Black Ops 6 being in our hands and being able to grind everything out however we want. Whether you want to jump in first to Black Ops 6's campaign, multiplayer, or zombies, go for the Prestige Master grind, those weapon camos, whatever you want to do, we're just now only 2 weeks away. This whole past week, we ended up seeing mostly a bunch of campaign reveals, and today, I want to take some time to lay out everything that you need to know about the campaign, from story to preloads to launch, and the questions of any workarounds that maybe you can play early, to rewards and more. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. What are you looking forward to jumping into first? Campaign, multiplayer, or zombies? If you enjoy the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on the video, and of course, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for launch. Daily reminder of that super lofty goal we have. We're chasing down 600,000 subscribers, so if you'd like to help us get there, perhaps by launch, or at least close that gap by launch, I'd love to have you in the community if you'd like to join us. Finally, this video is brought to you in part by Factor, but more on them a little bit later. For now, let's get into what you need to know about Black Ops 6 and the campaign mode here upcoming. So the campaign, first and foremost, is developed by Raven. This is not going to be a Treyarch campaign, just like Black Ops Cold War was not. Treyarch is instead going to be at the helm of multiplayer and zombies, allowing them to focus on those two modes, while honestly, I think that Raven did a very good job with the Cold War campaign, so looking forward to seeing what's in store for Black Ops 6. Now, a basic synopsis here at a top level, this takes place after the events of Cold War and the flashback missions of Black Ops 2. It seems Adler is on the run for being a suspected mole that led to the death of Alex Mason and the Panama disaster. While on the run from the full force of the US government, a cabal known as the Pantheon emerges as a new threat not only to our heroes of Adler, Woods, Marshall, and all, but the entire world. So the campaign will see us traversing the globe, conquering various historical plot points while trying to figure out the deeper mystery afoot. In true Black Ops fashion, honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing what twists will come out of this. Now, let's talk about preloads. When can you start, well, getting ready to play this? Well, according to the PlayStation Game Size Twitter, a tracker that logs the backend databasing for PlayStation, we should have our first campaign pack preloadable on October 20th, so a little bit over a week from now. It is possible that's also when the new COD HQ gets that facelift and update. That's something that is going to be said coming before launch, but no specific date has been given just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we get more information on that as of next week and the reveals that come out of that. But the preload should start on the 20th for the campaign. Now, that's the preload. Does that mean you can actually play it then? Unfortunately, no. As we've mentioned before, and I don't want to stay on this too long, there's not going to be any campaign early access, whether because of fear of unsatisfactory ratings like last year because of the Modern Warfare 3 campaign, or perhaps Microsoft just doesn't want to offer anything before day one to keep that big marketing push of day one on Game Pass in place. We don't know, but this year returns to that normal state of everything all at once. Personally, I think that's a bit of a bummer. I always really enjoyed taking my time on the campaign without having to think about the fear of missing out on multiplayer or zombies progression on that, but it is what it is here at this. So that means the campaign will be launching alongside everything for Black Ops 6. But when that is, again, we'll reiterate this later on the week of launch with our Everything You Need to Know guide leading up to that, but Black Ops 6 will launch at midnight local time for consoles, and then historically we've seen a standard one-time launch for PC. Usually PC will launch at 9 p.m. Pacific time the night before launch, so in this case 9 p.m. Pacific on the 24th, and then midnight Eastern. So the same time, just the way the time zones work, and then that will apply to the entirety of the world. That's why you'll see a lot of people saying they're going to New Zealand on console for a vacation or some joke like that, because if you have an account that is set to a New Zealand region, that's the first time zone in the world to get the global rollout happening. So you can play almost a full 24 hours early, but everything else is geo-locked, so you're stuck in whatever region you're set to. Now, that said, can you play the game early with a physical copy of the game? That's a great question, but it appears no, that's not the case, and here's why. Previously, you could, I'm talking every game up until Modern Warfare 2 in 2022, and that made sense. Local play in a physical disc would bypass any digital time-gated access that you'd see that you'd have to adhere to with a global rollout. However, with the COD HQ, the HQ itself needs to be updated, and that's something done on the Activision side of things. Then, add in the fact that always online is present for Black Ops 6, and you don't have local play, like internet connection is required for campaign even this year, you won't have any offline mode to be able to play, even if you could bypass that COD HQ update. You still wouldn't be able to do anything with it. So this is the same as it was last year. So if you're looking to get the game early, I wouldn't really risk it. There's a lot of scams that happen pre-launch just for a couple of days early access in the past. So with it not being possible, I'd save your money in the stress of potentially having to track that eBay order all the time if you care that much about it. So that means that everything will be launching all at once for the first time since Vanguard once again. Though perhaps for the first time, I'd say since Cold War, maybe the campaign's actually worth playing. So that's a lot of juggling your time where if you're grinding, maybe at some point during that grind, you might say, forget to eat. You'll look down and realize, oh my God, I've spent so much time here, I completely missed lunch or dinner. In which that case, that brings us to today's sponsor, Factor, who brings you fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your doorstep. This time of year is always the busiest time for me, whether it be between wrapping up any final summer plans to prepping to lock myself away for the grind of a new COD launch and to get all that content ready to go. Frankly, some days I just forget that I should be eating because there's so much on my mind. That's where Factor comes in clutch. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. You can skip the grocery stores, prep work, and that feeling of, man, I just really don't feel like cooking. Instead, you can get chef-crafted meals delivered right to your door, and there's over 25 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and even more. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or even reschedule your deliveries at any time. We've worked with Factor here a couple of times on the channel, and I can't recommend them enough. And again, they really do help out with a new game launch crunch and really just any situation you may be short on time. So if you're like me and are interested in learning more or picking up your first box, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code espresso50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code espresso50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders, and thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now, back to it, let's talk about gameplay. Of course, you're going to have your standard difficulties, recruit, regular, hardened, veteran, but there were also recently described some interesting gameplay mentions. It was described in a blog post that we're going to have an actual inventory system. We're going to have armor meters on our HUD, which means that armor is going to be returning. There's mentioned piles of cash to work with for renovations of your safe house, kind of like buying upgrades, it seems like. Hoping these don't resemble too much of the Warzone style open combat missions that we saw last year with Modern Warfare 3, but we'll have to wait and see. And then, of course, we do know of that equipment wheel that will allow you to have access to probably that inventory system. That might be where that crossover comes into play. That was already showcased in the campaign gameplay that we had seen before. Now, as for your total missions and a mission list here, so far it's been described the missions of Intro, Contract, Union being that one again that we saw the campaign footage of, Sandbox, Palace, Redacted, Heist, Storm, Sabotage, Interrogation, and Defend. So a total of 11 missions previously confirmed. Now, it's possible that we could see that increase by maybe one additional one if there are alternate endings compared to what Cold War had, but that we just don't know too much. But how does this stack up in terms of missions compared to other Call of Duty games? So far, the only ones that fall short of the 11 total here for Black Ops 6 are Vanguard with 9, Black Ops 3 tied with 11, and then Black Ops 2, if you don't do any of the Strike Force missions, that also was tied with 11. The rest of the campaigns since COD 4 have included more missions, but that's something that this shorter list I'm waiting to make any sort of judgments on because we don't know the timing of how long this is going to take. As we'll touch on in a second, with a stress on some more open world elements versus just straight linear A to B, this could take still the same amount of time as, say, COD 4 with 20 to 21 missions with Mile High Club, that being the most campaign missions we've seen in a COD game in the franchise. Mission total doesn't necessarily always equal amount of playtime. So to expand upon that, let's talk a little bit about the campaign details and the gameplay that we know of right now. This seems to be a mix of linear and more open exploration style missions within Black Ops 6. But open world is something that might be maybe not so great mark to hear about, especially because we saw recently in Modern Warfare 3 last year, the open combat missions weren't exactly a huge hit. Personally, I thought this wasn't the best introduction to an open world campaign route that Call of Duty could have taken, and frankly, because of the 18 months of dev time, I don't think that it was their intention at all. So they kind of just probably threw together some missions in Spec Ops in a sort of Warzone-esque fashion just to have anything ready to ship with a game. With 4 years of development time on this campaign, I'm imagining that we see things instead like the mission Desperate Measures from Cold War. In that mission, A to B was always the same. You ended up having to infiltrate the Lubyanka building and then end up eventually getting Adler and co. into the building so that you could break out with mission critical data. But the pathing on how you ended up getting from A to B was entirely up to you. There were like 4 to 5, I think, main ways to do this mission, but all entirely up to the player. You could explore the larger set pieces phases of the campaign mission however you'd like. In fact, there were even Dark Ops challenges that encouraged you to do so. So you could do that however you wanted, then get that intel you need, and eventually let Adler and co into the Lubyanka building, and then that's where the mission continued in a more linear fashion. So by what was showcased at Summer Game Fest, it appears these missions will be similar. With the mission Union that was showcased, we were told explicitly that we're going to have 3 to 4 different ways to approach that one singular way to get to the underbelly of this gala and rescue Adler from a black site. So with that in mind, how long can we estimate this campaign will take to play? Well, based off of prior years, the average COD campaign length is usually around 6 hours, but we haven't seen any reviews, no events for journalists to give any information like that. We haven't seen any early access, obviously, so it's still a rough estimation, but my guess is probably right around that 6-hour mark. But because of those more open world nature of, again, if it follows, as mentioned, the Desperate Measures mission, you could probably speedrun this, where maybe it would take like 4.5 hours of time, or you could take your time with everything and it may take like 8 hours. That part is still a little up in the air. However, if you do complete the campaign, along the way you will end up earning multiple rewards as you go along. Each mission, sometimes a combination of 2, my guess being like shorter missions put together, you'll be rewarded with various different items. We already detailed this, so just to breeze past this, you'll end up getting a spray, weapon vinyl, finishing move, blueprint, another vinyl, operator, a weapon charm, wallpaper, another charm, and then 4 blueprints that can end up being earned through the safe house. That sort of intermediary portion of the game where you can hang out and explore things without having to jump into the next mission right away. You'll end up having a puzzle and multiple upgrade station bonuses that will give you 4 blueprints for the combat knife, the Ames 85, the Jackal PDW, and the Marine SP. But that's really all that there is to know about the campaign itself. But one thing that I would very much so take into consideration here is something to expect beyond just the gameplay itself. We talked about how there's going to be preloads on the 20th, right? That's when it seems like we're going to be able to preload the Black Ops 6 campaign. That is what you have to keep in mind. There's definitely going to be data mines and leaks coming out of this. While the game won't be playable, once that update hits for the campaign pack preloads, the COD HQ is all one shared application, so anyone that can data mine the existing COD HQ content, in theory, has access to everything that will be coming in that. So pending they decide to break up the campaign multiplayer and zombies content, like you can't preload multiplayer and zombies until like a couple of days later, well then there's definitely going to be campaign spoilers out there in the wild starting on the 20th, and perhaps even more like those hidden Prestige Master rewards, all weaponry, Dark Ops content, and more stuff like that will more than likely be leaked. So just bear that in mind if you want to go in blind and experience the game for the first time. At that point, I'd recommend not necessarily going to any of the corners of the internet or social media that talks about Black Ops 6. So that said, that is everything that you didn't know about the Black Ops 6 campaign and to get you ready for the upcoming content ahead. Again, only 2 weeks now on the countdown. A little bit more time to talk about some stuff. We're going to have more reveals coming as of next week. But until then, that's where we're going to wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is there anything in particular you guys are particularly looking forward to jumping into? Again, either it be campaign, multiplayer, or zombies. Anything you're looking forward to beyond that, whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for launch and beyond. I'd love to have you in the community. For now, though, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.